Hello, it's Dan here. Now, in the last couple of videos, I've talked about the research that shows that we have a tendency to overestimate how much our appearance and actions are noted by others. That they're far less aware, other people, of what we're doing and our behaviors and how we look than we think they are. I've also talked about how our internal states, again, we overestimate how much of how we're feeling the inside, our thoughts, feelings, sensations, how much of that leaks out and is apparent to other people. And really, it turns out, we are much better at concealing how we feel on the inside than we think is actually the case. Other people are not picking up on that anywhere near as much as you think they probably will. And that's particularly true, things like anxiety, nervousness, disgust, all those kind of strong emotions. People are not picking up on what's going on inside of us. We feel it really strongly. We assume it must be leaking out because we start from that focal point of how strongly we feel it. But even though we allow for the fact that they don't kind of know exactly what's going on inside of us, we still overestimate it, which means that we don't need to be worrying about that stuff to anywhere near the degree that we do. Most of our fears, worries in these kind of areas are misplaced, exaggerated, unnecessary, and really, you want to mentally disregard those things and get on with what you want to be doing. And one area where this is, particularly kind of prevalent is in terms of public speaking. And again, I'm building on research here. The research is there that shows this is a thing. We think that kind of anxiety, and many people get anxiety about public speaking, as a presentation, a speech. You're called upon to do something, automatically feel nervous, anxious about it. Whether you suffer from general anxiety anyway, or whether it's specifically around public speaking, it's way up there on the list of people's fears and worries. And because it's so strong, that kind of worry, that nervousness, you don't want to look anxious. You're worried other people will pick up on it. They'll pick up that you feel uncomfortable, or you're a bit shaky, or maybe you're worried about how your voice will come across, or you won't say things in the right way, and you think those thoughts, those feelings, those sensations must be leaking out. They must be apparent to other people. But it turns out from the research, as in a lot of other areas I've spoken about in these videos, that's not the case. And public speaking, like I say, really is, a key area. If it applies there in terms of the anxiety, in terms of speaking in public, it's going to apply to anxiety, across the board, because a lot of other things are not at that level where you're in the spotlight. People are looking at you, people are listening to you, paying attention to you, yet still they're not picking up on the kind of nervousness, the anxiety that you might think you're experiencing on the inside. And what can happen is, of course, you don't want to come across as anxious. You don't want other people to pick up on it in any environment where you're speaking in front of people. You want to come across well, but because you think that strong emotion, that strong anxiety that you're experiencing on the inside, you think it must be apparent to others. It's so strong, you can feel it there, you're aware that your heart's beating a bit faster, your mouth might be a bit dry, maybe you feel a bit shaky, on edge. You think it's so strong, it must be leaking out, it must be being picked up by others, and because you don't want to come across as being anxious, you don't want other people to know you feel anxious, you feel even more anxious. I feel anxious, so other people must be picking up on it. That in itself makes you feel more anxious, and then feeling more anxious means, of course, you worry about it even more. So it starts to escalate in that worrying about what other people are thinking and what they're picking up, and that they'll notice you're anxious, makes you feel more anxious, which makes you worry about it even more, which makes you feel even more anxious. So it's one of those kind of cycles of anxiety where the thoughts lead to the feelings, lead to more thoughts and more feelings, and it just accelerates and grows and magnifies. And that's there in the research. People delivering public speaking in front of others, feeling anxious about it, feeling nervous about it, rated themselves as coming across as more nervous and anxious than was actually the case in terms of how they were rated by the people who were there observing them. They assumed more stuff of what they were experiencing inside was leaking out, that other people must be picking up on that anxiety, whereas in fact they weren't picking up on it. It was being kind of overestimated in their kind of own perceptions because they felt it so strongly themselves, and they assumed that other people would be picking up on it when in fact they won't. And you know what? Here's the great thing in terms of this research, because when people were told, people were going to deliver public speaking, were told their anxiety wasn't picked up by other people from the research anywhere near as much as they might expect, that it doesn't leak out in that way, that it's not as apparent to observers as much as they think it is. Well, guess what? that led to them being more relaxed. They perceived their own performance as being much better, they felt they came across better, and the observers rated their performance as even better. So just knowing that other people aren't picking up on this stuff, whether it is, as in this research, in terms of public speaking, speech anxiety, whether it's in terms of other anxious situations where you might be in front of other people, you can think of situations like, if you're in a meeting or a social situation, there are other people around, maybe you do feel a bit nervous, a bit anxious, the chances are other people aren't picking up on that anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're not aware of those inner thoughts, feelings, perceptions that are going through you. You feel it strongly, you assume it leaks out, you assume it's apparent to them, but in fact you're probably overestimating that, and probably those concerns are just misplaced. So knowing about this, whether it's public speaking, whether it's another area around anxious stuff, keep in mind the stuff you're experiencing on the inside is nowhere near being picked up as much by other people as you think it's going to be, which means that you can discount those thoughts, and clear them from your mind. Means that you'll feel more relaxed, you'll feel better, you can do things, it can be more in that kind of moment without all those concerns exacerbating your anxiety. So just knowing about this means that you can escape that spiral of anxiety that happens when you feel anxious and you worry other people are picking up on it, which makes you feel even more anxious. You can escape that spiral, knowing that other people aren't picking up on those things, that it's not as apparent as you thought it was, that generally you're overestimating it, that it's often misplaced, means that you can escape that spiral of becoming more and more anxious about other people noticing you're anxious, and in fact you can just dampen that stuff. You can bring it down those levels because that is not a factor in what's going on. And like I said, whether it's speech stuff, speech anxiety, speaking in front of other people, even if you do feel a bit nervous, a bit anxious about it, other people aren't picking up on it. And like I say, that's going to carry over into many other situations where you might be called upon to speak in front of other people, where you're worried about being anxious and people picking up on these things. We already know from the things I've talked about in previous videos, people aren't picking up on how you look and your appearance and your behavior, your mishaps when you do something wrong or you mess up in some way. People aren't picking up on those in other situations, and they're not picking up on the stuff that's kind of inside of you, the anxious thoughts, feelings, sensations that you might have in something like when you're in the spotlight with public speaking or in any other area. So escape the kind of spiral of anxiety, discount those things, dampen those things, be aware of those things, remind yourself that people are not picking up on these things, they're not as apparent to other people, they're not being noted by other people anywhere near as much as you were probably thinking. So escape from that stuff, remind yourself of it, reassure yourself, and that means as you go places, even if you do feel a bit anxious, you're not going to be exacerbating it, and in many cases you can just relax, just get on with it, the stuff that you want to do, without all those worries, the fear of failure, the being judged, the messing up, the people thinking it's apparent that you are anxious. You can escape those things by having that knowledge. The research supports it, it's out there, you can find it, if you want to find it, message me, I can tell you where to find it. Let all that stuff fill your mind instead of all those kind of unnecessary, useless thoughts, worries, anxieties that you may have been having around what people are picking up on. Enjoy stuff. Get out there, do the things you want to do, knowing that other people aren't picking up on that stuff, that it's not leaking out, and that you're much better at concealing those things if you want to than you think you are. And I'll leave you with that, and I wish you a good day, and I will speak to you very soon. Take care now.